Welcome to the channel. Share where you're watching from. We'd love to find out, so drop a comment below, and let's jump into the story. The restaurant Willow and Bistro, hidden in a quiet neighborhood of Seattle, had a cozy, intimate atmosphere, with soft jazz playing in the background and dimly lit corners that seemed to invite secrets. Jessica, 45, sat near the window, her fingers lightly tapping the rim of her wine glass. Across from her sat Ryan, a new friend, perhaps a bit more than a friend, offering her a confident smile that made her pulse quicken. Tonight, Ryan had invited her to this quiet, tucked-away spot in the city, where she felt safe from the possibility of running into anyone she knew. Jessica had gone the extra mile with her appearance, double-checking her makeup before arriving. She understood the impact of looking flawless, especially when stepping into uncertain territory. Ryan excused himself to use the restroom, leaving Jessica alone to soak in the warm, inviting ambience. She caught her reflection in the window and noticed a faint smile on her face. But as she adjusted a strand of her hair, she saw the reflection of an elderly couple at a nearby table glancing in her direction. They seemed curious, which gave her a slight shiver, but she quickly brushed it off, choosing to focus on the excitement of her evening. After a few minutes, Jessica started to feel slightly uneasy as Ryan took longer than she expected. She picked up her phone, glancing at her messages to distract herself, when an incoming call startled her. It was Matt, her husband of nearly 15 years, who was supposed to be working late at his law office that night. She answered with her usual sweetness. "Hi, honey." Matt's voice was calm but had an unusual edge. "Hey, Jess. Where are you right now?" Jessica felt a hint of tension creep up, but she quickly laughed it off. "Oh, just out with some friends from the art studio. We're catching up over a little wine," she replied smoothly. "Why? Is everything all right?" A pause followed, and then Matt's voice softened with a strangely unsettling calm. "Why don't you turn around?" Her heart skipped a beat as she looked over her shoulder. There, seated in the shadows at a corner table, was Matt, watching her with an unreadable expression. He gave a small wave, his gaze fixed intently on her. Jessica's mind raced as she tried to steady her breathing. "Matt," she whispered into the phone, gripping it tightly. "What are you doing here? I thought you were working late." "Plans changed," he replied, his tone smooth but laced with something unspoken. "I decided to grab a quick dinner nearby. But imagine my surprise when I saw my wife, all dressed up, with someone who isn't me." His words stung, but Jessica managed to keep her composure, allowing a small smile to linger on her lips. "Oh, come on, Matt," she said, feigning innocence. "I just wanted to catch up with an old friend. No reason to make a big deal out of it. And anyway, aren't you with that man at your table?" Matt turned to his side, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "This is Laura, Jessica. My attorney." Jessica's stomach twisted, but she wasn't about to let him see her flinch. Regaining her confidence, she stood up, her heels clicking against the wooden floor as she made her way to Matt's table. She stopped beside him, casting a quick, polite nod to Laura. "Well, hi there," Jessica said, her voice calm but laced with a challenge. "Laura, right?" Laura nodded back, her gaze unwavering and a bit amused. Jessica then turned to Matt, her eyebrow raised. "So, Matt," she began, her tone slightly mocking, "what's this all about? A dinner with a lawyer? You could have mentioned if something serious was going on." Matt gave a soft chuckle, leaning back in his chair. "Oh, Jessica, I thought you knew, life tends to throw us curveballs. But here we are." He took a slow sip from his glass, his eyes never leaving hers. "And I'd hate to be the one left with a red face at the end of the day." Jessica felt her cheeks warm, but she laughed it off, her smile still fixed. "Oh, come on, Matt. You really think I'm out here doing something wrong?" She glanced at Laura, adding lightly, "It must keep you busy, listening to all these suspicions from paranoid spouses." Laura raised an eyebrow, looking mildly entertained. I'd say life has a way of surprising us, she replied. But that's why I'm in business. Jessica chuckled, though her heart pounded as she sensed Matt's gaze still fixed on her, digging deeper than usual. Jessica forced another soft laugh, though she could feel tension creeping into her posture. A lawyer, really? Matt, you're overreacting. It's just dinner with a friend. Don't you think it's a bit impulsive to bring a lawyer into this? Matt took a slow sip of his drink, his eyes still locked onto hers. Setting the glass down, he leaned forward, his voice steady. Jessica, I'm not one to make accusations without reason. So why don't you tell us about Ryan, your friend? Or is he maybe more than that? Jessica's smile didn't falter, though her grip on the wine glass tightened slightly. Matt, honestly. Ryan's just an old friend from college, a talented artist. We decided to catch up over dinner. Artists tend to be more expressive, you know, but that's all it is. Matt raised an eyebrow, his lips curling slightly in a smirk. Expressive, huh? Let's hope he sticks to painting. Jessica laughed, waving off the insinuation. Laura, take note of how he loves to stir up trouble. Really, Matt, you're jumping to conclusions here. Laura merely shrugged, her face calm but observant. Matt's expression, however, grew more serious. Jessica, he said, his voice firm, are you truly saying that you and Ryan are only friends? No, extracurriculars. Jessica glanced at Laura, then back at Matt, meeting his gaze with a slight glint in her eye. Yes, Matt. We're just friends, nothing more. Unless, of course, a shared love for art raises suspicions. She let out a soft chuckle, and Laura gave a small smile. Oh, I wouldn't call that grounds for suspicion, Laura replied smoothly. But it's always interesting to see how these things unfold. Matt smirked, appearing slightly amused by the situation. All right, Jessica, he said with a small shrug. But it would be interesting to hear what Ryan has to say about this friendship of yours. Leaning back, he crossed his arms, watching her. Maybe he has a different take on things. Jessica's confidence wavered, but she kept her chin up. Fine, Matt, she replied. When Ryan gets back, I'm sure he'll confirm everything. She forced a small smile, though her fingers tightened around her glass. Just then, Matt reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Actually, Jessica, we don't need to wait for him. He may join us eventually, but I thought you might like to hear his thoughts right now. He lifted his phone, his expression unreadable. It turned out that Matt had recorded his conversation with Ryan in the restroom, and as the recording began to play, Jessica felt her stomach drop. She exchanged a quick, tense glance with Laura, bracing herself for what was about to unfold. On the recording, Matt's voice came through first. So, that woman by the window, your friend, huh? Ryan's laugh was casual, almost too confident. Yeah, you could say that, he replied, sounding quite pleased with himself. Why, interested? Matt kept his tone light, playing along. Just curious. Some people make it look easy. Maybe you've got some tips. Ryan chuckled, sounding self-assured. Oh, I don't know if it's something you can teach. It's all about confidence, you know. Matt's voice shifted slightly as he pressed further. They say women with red hair are pretty wild. Any truth to that? Ryan didn't miss a beat. Wild is putting it mildly, he laughed, sounding almost proud. She's full of surprises. If I'm not careful, she might wear me out. There was a brief pause before Matt responded, lucky guy. Ryan laughed smugly. Yeah, I'd say so. Just hoping she doesn't wear me out tonight, if you catch my drift. The recording ended, and silence settled over the table as Jessica's cheeks flushed. She straightened up, trying to compose herself as Laura's gaze sharpened, her lawyerly instincts kicking in, while Matt watched Jessica with a calm, almost expectant look. Jessica forced a smile, though her voice wavered slightly. Matt, she began, attempting to stay steady, you know how guys talk. He's just showing off. Men say things like that when they're bonding, it doesn't mean anything. Matt raised an eyebrow, giving her a slight smirk. Oh, really? Just a joke, huh? That sounded awfully specific for a joke. Go ahead, Jessica, explain. Jessica took a deep breath, letting out a small laugh, though her face was flushed. Matt, really, she said, trying to keep her voice calm, Ryan just likes to brag. He has a wild imagination, that's all. Probably thought he was being funny. She turned to Laura, hoping for support. Laura, can we honestly take a guy trying to impress another man seriously? Laura offered a tight-lipped smile, looking mildly entertained but not particularly sympathetic. I think I've seen enough for one evening, Jessica. This isn't my usual type of dinner, but I have to thank Matt for inviting me, it's been enlightening. Jessica's face tightened, but before she could respond, she noticed Ryan returning from the restroom, scanning the tables with a slightly frustrated look. Matt leaned back in his chair, gesturing subtly in Ryan's direction. Looks like your friend is back, Jessica. I think he's looking for you. Jessica called out to Ryan, who hurried over, looking rattled and unaware of Matt and Laura's presence. Jessica, you won't believe it. Someone jammed the restroom door shut. I was stuck in there for ages. He glanced around, his eyes finally landing on Matt with a confused and suspicious look. Wait, was it you? Are you out of your mind? Matt raised an eyebrow, his smile calm and unbothered, while Jessica shot Ryan a pleading look. Ryan, she began hastily, let me introduce you, this is Matt, my husband. You can explain to him that we're just, her voice trailed off as she watched Ryan's expression shift from confusion to realization, his face draining of color. Oh, right, he stammered, his eyes widening as the reality set in. I think I just remembered I left my phone at the bar. I'd better go check on that. He nodded awkwardly, then quickly grabbed his coat and practically bolted from the restaurant without a second glance. Jessica stared after him, her expression a mix of shock and frustration. Matt chuckled softly, shaking his head. Jessica, seems like Ryan might be quite the artist, but he's definitely not reliable in a crisis. Laura gave a small, amused smile as she rose from her seat, gathering her things. Matt stood up as well, giving Jessica one last look. Oh, and by the way, he added with a half-smile, you'll be covering the tab for your little dinner with Ryan. Jessica clenched her jaw but maintained her composure. She flagged down the waiter and handed over her card, her face steely. However, when the waiter returned, he frowned and shook his head. I'm sorry, ma'am, but your card isn't going through. As Matt and Laura made their way toward the exit, Jessica turned to him, her voice tense. Matt, my card isn't working. Did you do something? Matt shrugged, glancing back with a faint smile. Didn't think it'd be an issue, Jessica. I assumed your friend would cover it. Are you serious, Matt? She hissed, struggling to control her tone. You're just going to leave me here like this? His smile widened a fraction. Come on, Jessica. You're resourceful, you'll figure it out. With that, he turned and walked out with Laura, leaving Jessica behind to handle the aftermath of her evening. As Jessica watched Matt and Laura walk away, a wave of frustration washed over her. She kept her composure, though her hand clenched tightly around her purse. Taking a deep breath, she turned to the waiter, who offered an apologetic smile. I'm really sorry, ma'am. Is there another card you'd like to try? Swallowing her pride, Jessica muttered, I'll figure something out. She quickly scrolled through her contacts, her eyes landing on her friend Rachel. Within minutes, Rachel arrived, paid the bill, and gave Jessica a sympathetic look as they left the restaurant together. As Jessica finally made her way home, her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts about Matt's unexpected ambush. How could he turn her life upside down in one evening? By the time she reached home, the house felt oddly empty. She was just beginning to take off her coat when she heard a car pull up outside. It was Matt. He walked in, his expression unreadable, and headed to the bedroom, where he began packing a small suitcase. The silence between them was thick with tension. Barely an hour later, Jessica stormed into the room, her eyes blazing. "Matt, what was that about?" she demanded, her voice trembling with anger. "You had to bring Laura to humiliate me in public. Do you know how embarrassing that was?" Matt's tense laugh caught her off guard. "Embarrassing?" he echoed, his tone bitter. "You think that was embarrassing? Try discovering your wife is sneaking around with another man." Jessica's frustration bubbled over. "You're blowing this way out of proportion," she exclaimed. "Do you really want to end our marriage over one dinner with a friend? This is ridiculous." Matt looked at her, a flicker of pain crossing his face. "Jessica, I loved you. We used to be great together. But after tonight, seeing you with him, it's clear things aren't the same. So yes, I want a divorce." Jessica's anger flared. "A divorce? Over some nonsense you overheard? Really, Matt? This is absurd." Without another word, she grabbed her purse and flung it across the room, barely missing him. "Go to hell, Matt. Stop insulting me, I don't deserve this." Matt took a deep breath, his patience fraying. He picked up his suitcase, slinging it over his shoulder, and looked at her one last time, his eyes weary. "Jessica," he said quietly, "you made your choices. Now I'm making mine." With that, he turned and walked out, the door closing softly behind him. The next morning, Jessica woke to the sound of a knock at the door. She opened it to find Laura standing there, holding a thick stack of papers. Jessica's face hardened as she took the documents, clenching her jaw while she scanned the pages. Laura's calm, professional expression seemed only to heighten Jessica's anger. Once Laura left, Jessica immediately called Paul, a highly regarded attorney known for taking on difficult cases. By that afternoon, she had begun working with him to build her defense strategy, to portray Matt as an overly suspicious husband driven by jealousy. Jessica was confident that, with the right approach, she could turn the situation to her advantage. But as she prepared, an unsettling question kept surfacing. How had Matt found out about her meeting with Ryan? She'd been cautious, hadn't she? But with no immediate answers, she shoved the thought aside, reassuring herself she'd handle it in court. Finally, the day of the trial arrived. Jessica sat at the defense table, outwardly composed. She and Paul had prepared a strong argument, presenting Matt as a possessive husband who had allowed jealousy to get the better of him. Yet, as the proceedings began, Jessica's confidence started to crack. Matt's attorney presented a piece of evidence she hadn't anticipated, printed screenshots of text messages from Jessica's own phone. These messages, exchanged between her and Ryan, clearly suggested more than just a friendly dinner. Her face flushed as she realized the weight of Matt's case. Under her breath, she muttered, "Damn it, Matt. You invaded my privacy." But the surprises didn't stop there. Matt's lawyer called in a witness, Mr. Thompson, an elderly neighbor who testified to seeing Ryan come to the house one evening while Matt was working late. Despite Paul's efforts to discredit Mr. Thompson's testimony, the damage was done. Matt's case was airtight, and Jessica's defense was beginning to crumble. By the time the trial concluded, the verdict was clear: Matt had won. After the trial, Jessica caught up to Matt in the courthouse hallway, her expression softened. She gently placed a hand on his arm, her voice kinder than it had been in weeks. "Matt, please, can we talk? Maybe we don't have to end things like this. I know I made mistakes, but we had something special. Isn't there a way to work this out?" Matt's face remained calm, though his gaze was unwavering. Jessica, this isn't just about mistakes, you lied. Even now, you're still trying to twist things around. He shook his head slowly. I loved you, Jessica, but betrayal isn't something I can look past. Jessica's face fell as she watched him walk away, leaving her alone to face the reality of her choices. The thrill she'd once felt hiding her secrets had come back to haunt her, and now, there was nothing left but to live with the consequences.